Hello, everybody. Welcome to Mormo Zone. I'm Mormo Zine. I'm a horror host and scary clown. I've been doing this for 10 years, and I'm with my guests. Uh-oh.
It's Ghost, Mormo.
Yeah, I'm with my guest, Joe Chencharik. Is that right?
Yeah, it's close enough. It's Chencharik, or as on the internet, you know me as Chendango. Thanks for
Awesome.
having me, Mormo.
Yeah, definitely. This show is about horror talk and music talk and just kind of things I'm interested in. And I get to go deep with some guests on this show. And my guest today, Joe, he's a fellow horror fan, and he's got his own podcast out where that goes deeper. It's a show where I can't believe you haven't seen that. And he has you watch a movie you've never seen and discuss it and go deep. And we got a bunch of people in the chat room right now. Billy and Eric and Cal are all here. And thanks so much for stopping in, everybody. And first up, let's talk a little bit about what you haven't seen it. Yeah, that's the name of the show.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
all good.
So first off, we're going to talk a little bit about Hellraiser and the Hellraiser series. And this is a great one for me. I remember I didn't watch Hellraiser with my dad, but like I remember being in the video store with my dad while the Hellraiser tape was playing on TV, and it was like a little clip after the movie where they were saying you could order Hellraiser t-shirts and stuff. It was like a little infomercial that they had at the end of the videotape that I saw when I was young with my dad. And then I saw part 3 on the big screen. And you were saying, Joe, your favorites are the first 2, right?
Yeah, man. So actually, it's weird that you say I have similar memories of not the video store, seeing the promo videos, but seeing the covers in the video store and being intrigued by Pinhead. You know, but yeah, my favorites of the Hellraiser series and what have stuck out with me are those first 2, and how it really didn't start off as that, like keeping Pinhead as iconic and the Cenobites as iconic. It was more of just like this weird morality tale, the first one.
Yeah, and it had lots of really weird and twisted family stuff in it too. And that's what stuck with me. Like I remember the guy being all like bloody and messed up, and he's like, "Come to daddy." It's just like gets into some real weird and twisted like family stuff. And then in the second one, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it gets real weird. Like the whole one's all about like weird, deep sexual meanings and like you said, family relationships of shitty brother and protecting the ones you really love or who you want to be with, and about reincarnation. Like Eric saying in the chat, Uncle Frank was a jerk, and that's beyond the point. And that second one, I think they just bring that concept to a whole new level of like it's in an insane asylum, or I'm sorry, it's in a hospital. And you just, all I really ever visualize from that second one is that maze. If anyone knows what I'm talking about, that hospital maze they kind of show.
Yeah, I remember. And there was a bigger monster in it. And I read an article about the big monster in part 2 and the role it played, and that it was like actually a Cenobite that controlled the other Cenobites. I can't remember what they called it, but I remember her walking through the maze and there being like a big labyrinth and the lights and everything.
It's so wild, and especially that first one and the whole concept. Now go with me. It kind of reminds. It has a very different movie, but it has the setup of it with the with Pandora's Box, it has this like almost like Gremlins feel of like you buy it at weird shops or you give it to someone and a hell on earth comes when you fuck around with it.
Yeah, and it's like there's people who they want to experience extreme pleasure and pain, and they find this puzzle box and unlock it, and then the demons come, and there's kind of like an S&M
Oh yeah,
type vibe to it, where the person is getting their flesh torn apart, but they're also getting some kind of pleasure out of being tortured and stuff.
that's the best one with all the chains just whipping, his body's being ripped apart, and that Cenobite, the chatter. That's
Yeah.
So
I've always wanted to be the Butterball Cenobite for Halloween. I thought that would be a great costume.
That would be an awesome costume. I wouldn't want to be Pinhead because I feel like your natural fear would be like a hammer.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that would be intense makeup unless you could get a mask or something. I think you can get a Pinhead mask.
I've seen them. It's just such a hard. I think it's like costume wise, that's such a you gotta get a really skilled one or a really great mask. Because I'm gonna fast forward a little bit. I've only ever seen trailers of this, but where the franchise went and is now, it's basically I think was in rights hell, and they made a movie straight to DVD just to keep the rights recently. And if you see that, it's the first time the guy who played Pinhead is not Pinhead, and it's awful looking. It's actually,
wow.
It may fall into that like horror comedy topic we have later, just because of how like bad that makeup is at the time. One interesting thing I want to note is I was looking at just like the franchise as a whole, and later on in the series, the special effects dude, Yeager, ended up directing one of the movies, which is pretty unique.
Yeah, and most people really hate part 4, which is where Hellraiser goes to space. But I actually really liked it. It went into space and into the past. It was a little bit all over the place, but I thought it had some really good visuals and was a really actually fun movie to watch. You know, they say every franchise eventually ends up in space, but
It's true, except for we have a few left that haven't. But yeah, Hellraiser, the fourth one, Bloodline, was directed by Kevin. I'm sorry, I was looking up. It was directed by Kevin Yeager, and Kevin Yeager is a special effects dude. But
awesome. Eric in the chat says he loves part 4, and he also said Jesus wept is a classic line from part 1, and totally that's what he says right before he gets torn up, I think, by all the chains. Jesus wept.
And he just has that deep voice. But yeah, you're so right though about these franchises, and I also think this Hellraiser kind of mirrors, in a sense, almost Freddy Nightmare on Elm Streets, where like they almost just became about the effects and what you could do with prosthetics as the further they went on.
Yeah, but that's the really great thing is that those movies had so much great practical makeup effects and puppetry and all of that. It was they didn't rely heavily on CGI, at least not at the start. And then maybe some of the direct-to-video sequels did. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about the direct ones, but the practical effects are really what made that. Even I was given the first one a rewatch prep, and even the transformation of just Frank in the attic when he's coming up with that stop motion skeleton. To me, it's perfection.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm Facebook friends with one of the Cenobites, Barbie Wild, who played the woman Cenobite.
Oh, that's awesome. She has her like her ribs out, right? Like her ribs are above her S&M costume. Is that her?
Dang, I remember her face having stuff on it. Dang, see, it's been a little while since I've seen these. And then Hellraiser 1 and 2 I saw on VHS, and then Hellraiser 3 I saw on the big screen. I possibly saw 4 on the big screen, but
Nice.
but they're all really great. And Billy says Fast and Furious 9 will probably be in space.
That's not wrong. I mean, it's probably one of the more like Shakespearean franchises out there too. The way Clive Barker wrote them. Kind of a different topic, random thought here, but I know that in the original script of Freddy vs. Jason, I'm sure you guys have heard this, is they were supposed to be fighting, and then they both lose, and they both get dragged down to hell, and Pinhead's there.
Oh wow!
That was in the original script, I believe, or one of the first two. And I believe it turned into a comic with that. They have that when they did Freddy vs. Jason vs. Pinhead in a comic.
Wow.
But that would have been awesome in that movie. Just imagine it coming fucking straight down. I'm sure some metal would be playing. And then he's just standing there just like, I'm Pinhead.
That would be totally awesome to have all 3 of those guys in hell duking it out. And Eric said that the female Cenobite had an open up throat. Now I remember like, her throat was pulled open, and
it's kind of like vagina looking.
Yeah.
That's all right. Now I remember that one. It's such a cool world, the Hellraiser universe, that I really hope. I think that's one that I wouldn't say give a reboot, but can come back, and you don't even need to bring a Pinhead in it. You could just introduce new Cenobites and make a good world out of it instead of trying to ruin it more.
Yeah, there definitely is an opportunity there. And also some of Clive Barker's other books haven't been adapted into movies yet. And like The Damnation Game and Weave World and all that haven't been adapted yet. And the way things are now, TV is so good at telling stories, where a lot of the cutting edge horror stuff is actually happening on TV rather than the big screen. So I'd like to see maybe a Clive Barker HBO or Showtime show or something where they can go long and tell a great longer story and really get into the characters. And
that would be great. Anthology horror, especially in the story, there's some of my favorite. I know we were talking before the show, like Tales from the Crypt, man. That's what I'd like to see with some Clive Barker stories. And
yeah, Clive Barker had the Books of Blood 1 and 2 that was his short stories collection, I believe. And I remember reading them and thinking they were great. And a horror anthology would definitely be rad for Clive Barker.
Yeah, so HBO, Showtime, if you're listening, get Clive Barker on the phone, get them rights, and make those anthologies, because I know we got some more horror anthology coming out, but I could always use more.
Yeah, definitely. This is a side story about Clive Barker, but I was at Comic-Con one year and Clive Barker was there speaking. I went and saw him speak, and he was promoting a kind of like a Clive Barker Pokemon type thing, where it was all these different little monsters, and you'd buy a box that came with a plush of these like little miniature monsters that kind of seemed like Pokemon to me. And they and it came with a small hardback book too, and there was supposed to be like a TV show or something, or like it was more like a children's product. It was going to be.
Oh, that's cool. That's interesting.
Yeah, I bought one of them, and it came signed and everything. And then, but it never happened. It must have just not gotten funded or whatever.
Yeah, he has an interesting career with that. I feel like he just has so many properties and ideas floating out there. But that's a shame because all the horror kids would love that, you know, get a Halloween stocking stuffer instead of Christmas stocking stuffer with the Clive Barker figures.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to. I've always wanted to kind of spearhead that movement of starting a gift exchange on Halloween as well as on Christmas, where you would gift your family and friends something spooky on Halloween and do a gift exchange.
That'd be awesome. All right, let's start it, guys.
Yeah, totally.
We'll send some. We'll start a Halloween gift exchange.
Secret Satan, Tom says.
Yes. Yes. Secret Satan.
Yeah,
all right,
definitely.
I'm on it.
And then the other thing, or another thing we were going to talk about was horror comedies. And there's so many of these horror comedies. I know on Twitter today, what's the one that was blowing up with the two hillbillies?
Oh, Tucker and Dale versus Evil, and that's one of my favorites. Horror comedy for me is I love my straight horror, but horror comedy for me, if you do that right, could be amazing. And Tucker and Dale versus Evil it's one of the best. I think it's at its of recent years, and basically what the horror comedy does in Tucker and Dale is like, you know, it shows them just being two bumbling idiot dudes who are mean to no harm, and then it switches to trying to be how a real horror movie would be filmed with these kids in the woods, and really the kids are the villains because they keep getting themselves chopped up accidentally.
Yeah, because they're like so prejudiced against redneck people.
Yeah.
And they're so like cityfied that they can't even handle the wilderness and everything.
They're a bunch of yuppie bros. I see in the chat. Tom brought up Cabin in the Woods, and Billy brought up What We Do in the Shadows. They're also great horror comedies. I really feel like the horror comedy, though, I'd say the last like 10 years or so really blew up.
Yeah, Eric brought up Attack of the Killer Tomatoes too, which is a great horror comedy that was filmed in San Diego, and I actually got to meet I got to meet
George Clooney?
the film. I met the filmmakers who made Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, and I had a Killer Tomatoes T-shirt that said "genetically incorrect," and I thought that was so funny.
That's hysterical. That's awesome. So all right. So like, if we're going Tactical Tomatoes, we really could go into like a Toxic Avenger or accidental horror, like a Troll 2. Like, I'm a big Troll 2 fan. That movie just cracks me up. If you ever seen that one, it's not.
Yeah, it's
to be
hilarious.
Funny. There's a really good documentary about it called Best Worst Movie for Troll 2 that I think everyone should check out.
I need to see that, and apparently there's a Troll 3 that came out in Italy that I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, so in that documentary, the director is like so Italian, and he's just like, he's like, no, I made a good movie, and like he's very like aware, he's like very not aware why people are laughing, because the movie itself is about supposed to be a warning about being a vegetarian. That's why a bologna sandwich is the death of the goblins.
Because the director was a vegetarian and he was trying to make a point, or
no. The director's wife, I think, wrote it, and all their friends were being vegetarians, and they thought that was stupid.
Oh wow! So it's like an anti-vegetarian movie.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah,
no wonder it turned out so bad. Like, to attack people for just trying to be ethical and healthy.
But one movie I had put on before this, we actually started filming, and it's one of my favorites, and it's Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon.
Yeah, I remember I saw that one when it came out, and that was a pretty good movie and had some funny scenes.
That's one of my favorite. I guess, yeah, I'd say like I'm less on the comedy on that, but like as a movie itself, I just love that mockumentary style of it. And I know I saw what was mentioned there, What We Do in the Shadows. I mean, that's to me hysterical. Then there's the dishes piling up, just being roommates.
Yeah, and TJ says Ghoulies Go to College. Chase says Zombieland, which was another really funny movie.
Oh man, they're. I think we can just keep going on. I'm just gonna come rattle off a few, and if it connects, let me know. The Final Girls was really great.
I
That
haven't
was
seen that one.
all right. I think you'd really like it. It's about this girl and her mom was like like basically in a Friday the 13th type movie,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, her and her mom died, and then this girl goes to a screening, like a midnight showing, a couple years later after her mom's death, and the theater burns down, and then they get trapped into this. A group of final girls get trapped in a movie, and they have to basically play out the 80s like slasher film, but they're
Oh wow,
modern day. It's really good.
that sounds great. That kind of reminds me of like Demons 2. Did you ever see that one?
Never saw Demons 2, but it sounds interesting.
Yeah, it was where they're like at a late night, midnight movie and there's like 80s people, like 80s punks in the audience, and the demons come out of the
Oh,
screen and everything.
oh man,
People get trapped in the movie.
I gotta check that out. I love that concept. There's a little side rant. There's this really awesome I'm a big fan of Are You Afraid of the Dark, the Nickelodeon show.
Uh-huh.
And there's an episode, actually, weirdly enough, I have Nosferatu beer, but
Oh, awesome.
there's an episode where these kids work at a movie theater and they're showing midnight movies, and the kid has to go into the screen to fight Nosferatu to save a girl. And even though it's for kids, it's a really good episode.
Oh yeah, Billy brings up Bubba Hotep, which was a great one where it's like Elvis and elderly Elvis fighting the undead or fighting a mummy.
And he's played by Bruce Campbell, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Oh man, I think horror comedy, and it for me that horror comedy, even like you just mentioned, Are You Afraid of the Dark, like even like children's comedy, sometimes shines like the brightest for me. I see someone's mentioned American Werewolf in London, and that's just a classic. And it had American Werewolf in London, I think, has some of the scariest moments with just like his friend who's a ghost. That to me was creepy in that movie.
Yeah, definitely. And that definitely had some humor too. Yeah, there was a kid show I really liked when I was young. It was called like I can't remember what it was called though, but it was like Erie, Indiana, I think.
Oh, never heard. Yeah, there's a really, I know some people in the chat have definitely seen this, and you actually might be able to get the dude on your show. Um, there's a movie called Funhouse Massacre that came out 2 years ago. Did you catch that
Uh-huh.
one? That
No.
that is the best, dude. And actually, he kind of runs in the YouTube space. Ben Bagley wrote it with his wife, and it's about 7 psychopaths or so take over one of those Halloween haunted maze rides, and then
Uh-huh.
these psychos just murder people. The movie's so much fun and great.
Oh wow, it sounds
Definitely
awesome.
Funhouse Massacre. I know for a fact it's on Showtime right now, guys. Give that a watch because it's funny, it's creepy. Once again, weirdly, you know how like Robert Englund always shows up in these like low key horror movies just as like a bit part.
Yeah.
Yeah, he pops up in it.
He shows up as a bit part, but then it's like on biggest
Yeah,
credit on the poster.
yep. He's right on the cover of the poster, and he's in the first 5 minutes. But
That's awesome. He's had a great career.
Yeah, I wish he did one more Freddy.
Yeah, he should, like an elderly grandpa Freddy or something.
Well, I know we're not talking Freddy, but New Nightmare.
Well, Freddy actually got pretty comedic towards the end of the franchise.
It did. It really did. I mean, that second one, even not even the end. The first one, to me, is one of the best horror films of all time. The second one is unintentionally funny now because of all the gay innuendos.
Yeah.
And then what Oddshape in the chat said is, Tom said in the New Nightmare. I think that's like Dream Warriors goes pretty serious, and then like Freddy's Dead, he just becomes a stand-up comedian until New Nightmare.
Yeah, and does like more like cartoonish violence and stuff.
Yeah, I love the humor in the Freddy though, but I see in the chat. Oh yeah, definitely. Chase, Beetlejuice, I would say definitely would count as a horror comedy.
Yeah, and Slither was a fun one. I have the craziest story about that, and it makes me look like such a bad person because when the Dawn of the Dead remake came out, I wrote a hate mail to the guy who wrote it, who was James Gunn back in the day before he was like this mega Hollywood guy. And I wrote him a hate mail, and then the next day I wrote him like an apology mail. But
that's funny.
And anyways, like in my hate mail, I accused him of being a plagiarist and stuff. And then that movie Slither came out, and I went and saw it at the drive-in. And there was a scene where like a character, this guy, like he was like a sheriff or something, and he looks right in the mirror, right in the camera, and goes, "You ever seen anything like that before?" And it just felt like a shout out to me for writing him that hate mail back in the day. I was cracking up so hard.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know. James Gunn comes from the trauma world, which is wild where his success is now. And he started with Juliet.
Yeah, it's great that he's been able to launch from trauma to become so successful. And I love his movies. I go see every one of them.
So do I, man.
It was just bad mental health when I wrote him that hate mail. I was just
well, so actually I got a good story about that Dawn of the Dead remake. So I was fairly young when that came out. But I was like really starting to get into horror films. Me and my buddy went to go see the Dawn of the Dead remake. And I remember it was the first time kind of actually like being like okay to like laugh hysterically at a horror movie. Like, I don't know why. I remember I guess it says weirdly enough about me that when the guy's just standing there in the middle of the street in the opening scene, that ambulance just like plows that guy. Me and my buddy were just cracking up. And then so we thought we were like, anyway, so then we started watching a lot of horror comedies, whichever we're at that time. And we were like, oh, horror movies are funny now. Like, and not even just like horror comedy. Like, we were just trying to be like jerk kids and like laughing at like good horror movies. And then we decided to watch House of a Thousand Corpses. And then we were like, because you got to remember, I was probably 12.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
That movie to me was like that. Nope, done thinking everything's going to be funny with the mutilation.
Yeah, I remember going and seeing that, and I was just shocked that it got an R rating. It like I was almost literally in shock when I walked out of it, and I was thinking, man, I can't believe that pulled off an R rating. They got away with so much in that movie, and it was so intense and so like anti-authority and everything. And subversive and everything,
Yeah, man. And then I mean the follow-up years later is I think a better movie. Devil's Rejects.
Yeah, because House of a Thousand Corpses was almost like an art movie. I think it was kind of experimental in a way, parts of it, and surreal and everything, and then Devil's Rejects was more of like a road movie and more down to earth and grounded in reality. And
definitely. And then, as we all know, speaking of comedies, they let Rob Zombie ruin Halloween.
Yeah. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed him I enjoyed him once on the big screen, but I'd probably never watch him again.
Yeah.
To me, it's like franchises are like seeing. I think I've described it this way on the show before, but like seeing a horror franchise years later, it's kind of like seeing an old friend who's going through a bad divorce or something. Like, it's great to see him, even though times are bad, but it's still good to see him up on the big screen.
I get behind that. I like that. But yeah, like the horror comedy genre just as a whole is great. I know one that was mentioned a little earlier that I don't think we talked about, but I knew that one like got like not even non-horror fans into it was Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah, that's playing at the Alamo Draft House near me.
Oh, nice. You got to go catch it.
Yeah, I saw it on the big screen already when it first came out.
Same.
And it's a great movie and a kind of like smart, introspective, and kind of like from geared towards a horror fan a little bit, I think, in that it talks about a lot of horror movie
the tropes and
scenarios, the tropes. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I bought when it came out. I bought the production book, so I wanted to see all the concept art of all those extra monsters they made, and that's a really interesting book if you can still find it, because I know they don't really run those production books that long. But yeah, dude. I mean, and then I just want a little shout out right now to my favorite horror comedies. That's a tradition, even when they're bad. Is The Simpsons Treehouse of Horrors.
Oh yeah, those are always funny.
Yeah, I'm a diehard Simpsons fan, and even when they're bad, I still enjoy them.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe I haven't seen the bad ones because all I can remember are pretty funny ones. Like they did Edgar Allan Poe once, that was really good. I know, and
they did one actually. I know beforehand we were talking about Puppet Master, and there's an episode. I don't know if it's strictly based off of Puppet Master, but like Bart, like there's a little evil doll running around. My favorite's the Shining spoof one, and Homer goes into a 3D world. There's one where he gets lost inside the wall, and the wall is more like a 3D, a 3D Homer, and he's stuck in this like geometrical space. It's a pretty well written episode, but and that show. I mean, now talking about it with the Treehouse of Horrors every year since '94, probably. That probably really helped a level of comedy horror come in.
Yeah, definitely. And Janine Bryce in the chat says, I'm from the generation of teen horror, so all those corny ass movies have a soft spot for me. And that reminds me of one I wanted to bring up, Idle Hands. Did you ever see that one with Seth Green? And
never saw Idle Hands, but once again, I'll definitely check that out. I like so those teen horrors, those 90s teen horror films that aren't Scream, which it's Urban Legends. I always thought was just a goof of a movie. What's Idle Hands about though?
It's about like young kids smoking weed, and then like the guy's hand gets possessed and he has to cut it off, and his friend comes back from the dead as a zombie. I remember enjoying it pretty well.
Definitely check it out. What?
Yeah, stoner horror, Tom says. Janine says she loved Idle Hands. I thought that might have been from the era she was talking about.
The one I think someone mentioned it in here, and it's such a new release that I'll just bring it up. And I thought it was pretty good. It's on Netflix right now. Little Evil. It was okay. It's okay. It's with Adam Scott, and basically he's stepdad to Damien from The Omen.
Oh wow, I need to see that. I keep hearing about it. Like nobody has anything bad to say about it,
Yeah,
really.
it was funny. It was a good little like like a Tuesday night watch. Um, and then it's very similar. This one flew on the radar, but it's that same group of like comedy guys like Adam Scott and whatnot. I don't know if he's particularly in it, but um uh fuck I think it's called Devil Baby. Someone in the chat, the one with sorry I'm blanking on the name of the movie. Hell Baby. Hell Baby. If anyone's ever
Oh, I
seen that.
haven't seen that one. That sounds good. That's what I
It's
always used to tell. So I used to tell my girlfriends, ask them if they wanted to make fat hell babies for me.
Yeah, Hell Baby is with it's with Rob Corddry. And once again, that same kind of like Rosemary's Baby spoof. But it was good. But want to make little hell babies with me? I'll tell that to my girlfriend sometime, and then she'll move out.
Yeah. Let's see. And then of course there's somebody in the chat brought up Army of Darkness, and then there was Evil Dead 2 was also pretty much a horror comedy.
Yeah, yeah, the Evil Dead franchise. I know I like them. I've watched them, but it's never was one that like I've revisited so much.
Mm.
But it's so slapstick. You guys are mentioning Rubber. That's a weird freaking movie. I mean, that is as art house as you could get.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one, but I need to check it out. It seems like one of those must see movies that everybody needs to see at some point.
Yeah, yeah. Tom says you'll love it, and I think you will too. It's and then another. I think there's a lot of horror comedies also that are art or unintentional, and one is Stephen King's Maximum Overdrive, which kind of reminds me a little of Rubber.
Yeah, definitely. And that one's got some funny moments like, honey, the ATM called me an asshole with Stephen King. And
Yeah. Apparently Stephen King was so like high off of like coke and it was peak alcoholism where he doesn't remember making the movie.
oh wow, that's awesome. And
Yeah.
TJ says Poultry Guy. So I was just gonna mention that Trauma does a lot of great horror comedies, with the gross out special effects and the comedy. Class of Nukem High, and there's the new ones. There's I think part 2 of a Return to Class of Nukem High is getting ready to come out.
Oh, is it? I'm a Trauma fan of the Toxic Avenger, Jersey represent.
Yeah.
And God, and I've watched a few of the Traumas, which like God, one was on the Surf Nazis Must Die. And yeah, I think it's Surf Nazis Must Die. I'm thinking, just go watch that trailer. It's funny.
Yeah, Eric says Mother's Day has too much rape to be a comedy, and I gotta agree. It has some humorous scenes, but it's really, really dark humor.
And then, I think for some, I don't consider them horror comedy because they're straight up spoof. Oh, Zombievers was actually pretty fun. I saw some in the chat, but the scary movies, the first 3 I think are like, fun comedies, but I wouldn't call them horror.
Yeah, that's true because they're mostly just spoofs like that Medea movie. Boo is kind of the same way. I went and saw the last one on the big screen. I'll probably go see the new one.
Medea too.
Last year, that was one of the only horror movies playing in October. This
You're
year,
right.
luckily, there's a couple more to look forward to, like the new Saw movie and everything.
Thankfully, they're starting to move their stuff around, and we're getting good horror back in the season. But yeah, man. One of my favorites is I just blank, guys. My apologies.
That's cool. Billy says Krampus is listed as a comedy horror, and yeah, it was kind of like a funny kids horror movie, kind of similar to Gremlins. It reminded me a lot of Gremlins.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, they really plucked right from that Joe Dante material. I mean, Trick or Treat, I think we consider as more a horror comedy in a sense. So many great ones, and especially around Halloween, there is that level of fun. So I think the horror comedy are great watches, like with especially when you want to get friends together, because Halloween's like you're scary, but it's also fun. Like I don't think I'm gonna throw out like get together with a group around Halloween time, be like, you know what, let's watch Rosemary's Baby. But I'm gonna more like let's watch Trick or Treat.
Yeah, definitely. That I could see that as being becoming a holiday classic for sure.
Yeah.
And Eric brings up Silent Night, Deadly Night 5. I think that's the one with Andy Rooney, but I'm not sure.
Garbage Day.
That's classic. And the first one, the scene with the grandpa, I usually watch that on YouTube every Christmas season. Just that one scene is so classic.
Oh, and speaking of that, just reminds me of the we talked a little earlier, but Tales from the Crypt, guys, that's horror comedy.
Yeah, definitely. That had a lot of humor, and just the Crypt Keepers opening was always full of like puns and stuff, and then it had a dark sense of humor to it. A lot of the episodes.
Definitely one that stands out to me that I actually think so like morbidly funny is I can picture the actor in my head as an older actor. His wife, he's a real jerk to his wife, and he's a taxidermist, and then his mom. His wife, I mean, turns him into like does taxidermy on him.
Yeah.
So that
And while we're talking about Tales from the Crypt, tell me what you heard about the new series. We were talking before the show, and you said it got canceled or something.
Yeah, so I feel because I looked recently, and I know they were developing a show, I believe, for TNT or USA, like an hour horror or 2 hour horror block, and I believe production has been halted, but which means basically it's been, no pun intended, it's basically dead for a while. I think especially with the M. Night Shyamalan was running it, and I'm sure with his recent like almost like renaissance of actually making like things that are good, he's probably been taken away from it. But I don't know if it's coming out anytime soon, because now it's been a little over 2 years with that talk. So just a little update on the Tales from the Crypt, what I've read recently.
Oh, that's a shame. And now for the time, like, I'm so thankful for everybody coming and watching live and commenting and helping us out, remembering different horror movies. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. And now's the time, though, when the comments will probably drop off, because let's talk about heavy metal and music.
All right, yeah.
And that's like the unpopular part of the show. But
I can talk about horror comedies all day, but let's talk some metal.
Yeah, definitely. There's like right now I'm really into a couple local metal bands. There's this band called Transylvania, and they do really good metal. And there's another band called Death May Die, and they do really good metal. And I've been to some metal shows over the years. I really like metal. Tom says he likes Ghost BC, and they're really good metal.
Cool. I'm a big. I like more newer metal wise. I like Volbeat a lot, and they're a little more like that. Like they're a little more punk metal. And that's more where I've always gravitated to with the metal. My favorite, and it's in the thumbnail, is Iron Maiden.
Nice.
Especially with their original singer, those first two albums, Iron Maiden and Killers. For me, that's I could play those on loops, because they have a little more of a heavier, that singer has a little more heavier sound than Bruce Dickinson. Mm-hmm. So they were a little less like I still like Bruce Dickinson, but I think it's Diano they were a little more like, it's a little more gruff to it, and they're a little more almost like a punk metal. With if you listen to Iron Maiden, just solo, self-titled, and Killers. Killers to me is one of the best albums ever made.
Oh wow, I'll have to check it out. I love metal, but like I hear some of the classic metal because I listen to classic rock on my radio, and it's definitely really fun, and like I like it when it's theatrical and there's like a stage show behind it, and
like an Alice Cooper.
Yeah, I was thinking of Alice Cooper and how he'll do like a guillotine on stage and everything.
Yeah. I was actually listening to him not too long ago give an interview on on WTF, Mark Maron's podcast, and he was really Alice Cooper was really like the first guy in that space to do the theatrics.
Yeah,
and the people at that time were like, what the hell is this guy doing? Like, because they were really just putting on like a cabaret and and playing up a character, and no one else was doing it, because at that time, I mean, and this is really his words, like my favorite band of all time, The Doors, but like Jim Morrison was the most mysterious dude that gave that that thing that Alice Cooper did, but Alice Cooper did it more dark.
Yeah. Kimber says I like Meshuggah and bands that sound like Meshuggah. That's cool.
Nice. Mormo, I think you'd like Volbeat a lot.
Oh, you should shoot me a link. Shoot me a link to a YouTube video on Twitter, and I'll check it out for sure. I'm sure I would like him.
Yeah, they call him just because they're from like Sweden or something, but they call it Elvis metal. It's a little more. I enjoy it. I know Kimber says it's okay, but that was the last metal show I was at.
And metal kind of ties in with horror, I think, because one of the first, what I would consider heavy metal bands, Black Sabbath.
Oh,
They said that they practiced next to a theater. They shared a wall with a theater that showed horror movies.
Oh, that's awesome.
In their practice spot, so they were probably like watching the old Hammer horror movies and stuff over there in the UK, and like
probably and Vincent Price.
But they said that those movies inspired the music, hearing the sounds and everything.
I believe it. I mean, if you the original metal of that would do, like you said, like that, and even we were talking earlier, when we were talking Hellraiser earlier, I'd say a Kismet spirit to Hellraiser is Judas Priest.
Yeah, Hellbent for Leather.
They brought that whole S&M, but like dark side of it to the forefront, and that's shown in Hellraiser. And Priest is screaming for vengeance. It's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Kimber asked if we like Tool, and I'm not really all that familiar with Tool. I went and saw Perfect Circle open for 9 Inch Nails one time, and so like Tool's like Perfect Circle's like a side project of Tool, I guess.
I like Tom Waits. That's Kimber just said, but Tool, yeah, 9 Inch Nails, I prefer it over Tool, personally.
Yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of 9 Inch Nails, and I guess they have a new album coming out.
Yeah, I mean, that's Trent Reznor's been doing he's been doing movie scores. He did actually my favorite movie score, which isn't metal, but since we're talking 9 Inch Nails, it is the theme from The Social Network. He won an Oscar. Trent Reznor has an Oscar.
That's awesome. Good for him.
Yeah. So, but I see Tom put the Maximum Overdrive. He's right. I mean, that was all AC/DC.
Yeah, definitely.
But
yeah, that's what I was thinking. The AC/DC soundtrack, and I always say the same thing about punk too. Is that when I was just getting into punk, I was hanging out with my bro Magic Matt, and I told him like how does punk how is punk similar to horror movies? And he said that punk is horror because it's singing songs about committing crimes and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like this exaggerated version of criminal life and stuff like that. And that I think metal is kind of like that too, of like exaggerated, horrific imagery and everything.
Yeah, what I really like about speaking of the imagery and what I really like about we were talking about earlier in like Iron Maiden is all their songs are based, or a lot of them are based from horror stories from history. If you listen to the lyrics, like even Number of the Beast.
Of which album?
Oh, the album's Number of the Beast, but their song Number of the Beast, 666, is about history. That most of their songs are based in history. And which be like the picture, even if you look at those like the Black Sabbaths, the Iron Maidens, the Jews, maybe not so much Judas Priest, the album art also that's horror. Eddie is a horror icon without ever being in a horror movie, but that music is scary in the best way.
Yeah, definitely. So, Joe, tell me about your next project. When's your next podcast episode coming out?
Oh yeah, so I got to record my next What You Haven't Seen That. Looking for guests. Whoever wants to come on, please just reach out to me. And we'll make something happen. Just been a little busy recently. You could check them out on my channel. You just search my name, Joe Chencharik or Chendango, and find me on Twitter. But speaking of horror and whatnot, soon, if anyone's familiar with the podcast Lore, there's a show coming out on Amazon with the same name, Lore. It's releasing this week. I plan on doing a recap show based off these episodes. And just kind of diving into them, and looks like another great anthology horror series. With their each episode looks like it's just going to be done in a different way, whether it's animation or live action, and all the horror from Lore and the Lore podcast is based in history and folklore, and I plan on doing a recap show of that. But you could listen to my other stuff as What You Haven't Seen That, where we just have a nice chat.
And that's on YouTube, you were saying?
Yeah, that's on YouTube. You just Google What You Haven't Seen That or Chendango, which is in the title of this, and you'll be able to find it.
Cool. Well, coming up for me this month, I'm going to be releasing my movie called Commenting in Theory and Practice. It's 43 minutes long. I polled my fans. Everybody wanted a long movie rather than several short movies. So it's going to be 43 minutes long, and it's about the power of commenting on the internet and on YouTube, Steam It, Facebook groups.
Nice.
And I'm commenting on blogs. And so I'll have that coming out this month. My YouTube channel is doing really well. I just added a playlist for this show and a playlist for my guest appearances on Andy Cook's Food. And all of my stats are looking up, my watch time and my views and my subscribers and everything. And I've noticed that lately people are starting to comment on older videos. So I think YouTube is giving me kind of a push right now for people to see some of my older videos. And so that's really exciting. And I'm just Mormo Zine on YouTube and Twitter and mormozine.com. You can find me, my old website. And I want to thank everybody for coming and commenting tonight. And thanks for watching the replay. I really appreciate that. Smash the like button. Smash the subscribe button. Check out the Odd Shape Channel Patreon, which is a great place where you can invest in the show. And Patreon's just a great thing all in general. And Joe says, great show. Thanks so much, Joe, and thanks, everybody. And that's a wrap, Tom. Thanks so much.
Thank you. I had a great time.
Yeah, me too, man.
Voice of Tom, thank you so much for joining the Mormo Zone with Mormo Zine. Please also join us for Encrypted tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be discussing Jinn. That's Jinn or DJINN. They're pretty much the concept of genies or ifrits or a bunch of other things. You'll find out more tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also, our part 3 of Randall and I's Fallout adventure will release on Thursday. Mormo has disappeared into the void. I need to go find him. Everyone, have a great night.